What was the first song that came out of that idea of?
Oh, that's a good question. What is the first song? I actually think it was Dust.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can imagine this early days kind of in the recovery process.
Yeah.
So what kind of mindset were you in writing that song?
Very emotional, but quite determined as well. But also, considering how rubbish everything was, I was actually quite relaxed at the same time. You know, we didn't like put any pressure on ourselves to sort of complete it for a certain day or make sure we have this amount of songs or this kind of style. We were just like, look, let's just chill, we'll rehearse with some great musicians, we'll just go in the studio, blah, blah. So it was all really relaxed, and, you know, I just felt like I could then express exactly what was going on at the time in a very natural, progressive way.
And musically as well, because well, a couple of years had passed, so I'm sure you develop as a person musically as well.
Yeah.
So what did you hear, or what did you want to hear in your music?
For the new album, literally nothing in particular. Okay. I mean, we obviously, because, you know, I already had quite a nice fan base from the Mocambos stuff, you know, I didn't want to venture too far out of the funk and soul thing. Sure. But at the same time, you know, we didn't really want to do anything that was replicating a particular artist or a particular album. You know, we were like, let's see, you know, we've been away from music so long, let's see what will naturally develop. Yeah, so that's how we worked.
Is there, because I hear this from artists a lot, is there a worry at some point that you kind of think, well, do I still have it?
No.
Oh, no, that's very good.
No, I knew it was always there. My problem was getting it out, because I didn't have people to work with at the time, or I felt like, you know, I didn't have anyone to work with. When I write alone, I write very inside, and that's quite detrimental, because you kind of lose your way doing that. You know, you can't tell when something, you can't judge the quality of what you're doing anymore. So no, I always knew that I was musical and was good at what I do. I just lost the route to doing it.
And then, so you found a new route, and Dust was the kind of first track that. When did the ball start rolling? That you thought, because you say that there weren't any deadlines, no pressure. So when did you think, oh, actually this is going quite well, let's do an album?
I guess when we took, I think it was like maybe 4 or 5. Actually, James where's James? He's over there, because James played on the album. I think we took 4 or 5 songs into the studio to record just the instrumentals, and we were like, you know, Stefan, Steph, my producer, he was like, you know, can you write on these? Let's see if we can develop them, and blah blah. And I guess we didn't actually say, okay, yeah, these are definitely going to go on the album, but we just had songs that kept coming, and I kept writing on them and finishing them, which was the big deal. And then, you know, eventually we were just like, hey, well, I think we can actually make something out of this collection of songs.
And I wrote a couple of lines down from a couple of songs. I'm not sure how much you want to go into it, but I read the title track, Ruthless Day, for you, I read was maybe the most personal on this record. So do you remember that moment in time writing that song?
I do, yeah. So that one is actually played by a Russian funk band called Soul Surfers. Amazing guys. If you don't know them, you should check them out. And at first, when I first heard the instrumental, I was like, oh, that could be sort of like some up-tempo song. But for some weird reason, it struck a chord. It struck that really emotional chord. And I don't know what it was. It was kind of, I don't know, you call it a bit of like divine inspiration or something. And I just knew that that was the song that had to be the one that was telling you exactly what I was feeling at that time and exactly what was going on. Yeah, I don't really have any other explanation. It was just, you just know,
right.
when you know. It's a bit like meeting a partner, when you know that they're going to be good for you.
Because well, you mentioned kind of the dark times that you went through, and there's a line in it: you can't live up to what you must do. So that feeling of in what respect was that musically? Was that just as a human being?
That was everything. Okay. As a human being, especially because I guess when humans need a purpose and they need a reason to be up and out of bed and doing stuff every day. And when you feel like you don't have that reason, it's kind of, where do you go from there? You don't go anywhere. Literally everything for me stops. I think, what am I going to be doing next week? And I couldn't even see past the hour that I was in. I was just like, I'd think about my future and it'd be like a black room, just a black canvas. So that was very, very terrifying, from knowing exactly what I want to strive for to then having no idea, yeah.
and another line I wrote down from: when people change, will you go or will you stay? So I didn't know if it was about a person or about music or about something else, but
that was about the fact that not many people knew what I was going through. I was still sort of gigging in London when I had to move back to Manchester. So I was, travelling on that goddamn bus because I was so skin and, and it was horrendous. And I still had gigs, so I still had to sort of like put on a face for people. And I was always worried that if people knew what I was going through, they would kind of judge me on that. And also, I felt very alone because I didn't get much support from my family. In fact, I didn't get any support from my family at all. And even, my siblings live in Manchester as well. And when I was there looking after my mother, I was in the hospital sort of like every day, twice a day for 9 weeks. And my siblings didn't really, obviously they visited, but, I was always asking them to help me, blah, blah, blah. And they've got families and they're busy and they work. So I was, very alone. So yeah, that's basically what that is.
After writing that song, did it help? Did it kind of...
It all helped. The whole album concept helped. Because again, it's that thing, finally I have a route to living, to... How do I explain it? A purpose, a route to a purpose again, I guess. Yeah, they, even though that is the most personal song, I think it's just the fact that I'd started again helped. That song is very difficult to perform, actually.
Yeah, because I can imagine you going back to is that true for the rest of the songs, that you go back to that initial emotion?
Yeah, a little bit. It's a little bit like scratching at a wound every time you perform them. I mean, yeah, Ruthless Day in particular. But the thing about the album, though, it's about shitty times, but it's actually not a depressing album to listen to, which helps. So, I didn't want to do something that was gonna really keep me in it, because I think if it had been very melancholic, I don't think I'd be able to perform that at all, really. So it's nice to have one very special one, which is melancholic, and then everything else, is kind of upbeat.
Well, yeah, that's an interesting point, because it does make you dance in a way.
Yeah.
So that element, were you conscious of was that a conscious effort, kind of what you mentioned just now, not to make it too melancholic or dramatic?
No, not really.
Or is it maybe because...
I think it's just the nature of the genre, probably.
Well, I was going to say, because you have, in Motown, there's a lot of that. In reggae, there's a lot of that, where it sounds very optimistic, but then if you listen to the lyrics, it's very...
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a nice, it's a good combination. I think it works.
Fair enough. Then finally, because, well, the album was released, you're now, I believe you're going to tour again. And, where are you now? in terms of kind of what you, because you mentioned purpose, do you have an ambition, so to say?
Yes, I want to, like performing for me is the main thing. Okay. I'm not a massive fan of being in the studio, but I obviously love the results when it, you know, when you've finished it. So I know that's just a process that I have to do and have to suck it up and not moan too much, although I do moan a lot about it. Obviously I want to improve my bass playing. And I've actually given myself a year to be competent enough to play and sing a few songs in my shows. Yeah. So I hope that happens. And then keep writing. Like, I'm not going to make the same mistake again where you stop being creative, because that's who I am. Mm-hmm. And I think when you lose who you are, that's when the trouble starts. So yeah, so just continue writing, performing. I'd like to write a musical, sort of soon. Well, maybe in the next 5 or 6 years, I'd like to write a musical, because that's my guilty pleasure, musical theatre.
What's your favourite?
Cats.
Cats?
Yeah, for sure.
Final question then. Because, well, going on the road, it might be an impossible question to answer. Well, what is the feeling that you get being on stage?
It's very freeing. There's this thing where in my real life, I don't particularly like being the centre of attention. Yeah. So, like, you know, you go to parties and I'm not sort of one that's kind of like buzzing around everybody and like everyone's listening to such, you know, conversation and stuff. You know, I'm not shy, but I'm just kind of reserved, and you know, I like to observe things rather than being the one with all the action. But on stage, that's the total opposite. And I think that is my, you know, that's my place of expressing everything that I need to express, you know, and I take to the stage in a bit of an aggressive, you know, I'm quite an aggressive performer. Whereas in real life, you know, I'm very chilled. So a lot of people, you know, they see my show and they're like, yeah, you're actually quite different on stage to how you are in real life, which, you know, I like, and I'd rather it be that way around. But it's, you know, it's all the things, it's all the good stuff. Fun, it's exciting. I feed a lot from the vibes from the crowd and my band, you know. Yeah, it's a good feeling. As boring as the word good is, it is a good feeling.
On that note, Gizelle, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.